All right. So, what? Just to go into this conversation, one thing you should all know is that Supercell is basically big daddy fucking monetization microtransaction. So, Supercell has the most motivation, the most reason, the most like stake in the game to have a take on this. Because if something influences microtransactions, Supercell, which is a probably $1 billion industry that owns, I think they have like 6 different games, not including they have like Clash of Clans, Clash Royale. They have a whole shitload of those games. So anything that Supercell says should be taken with a grain of salt. The way that I kind of picture it whenever I see a Supercell post is it's like,
who ordered it? Talk to our delivery drone. He run off to fight in the robot wars. Hey, Ape-Man, I hope this was worth making a whole swarm of enemies.
It will be, when I find whoever shit in my toilet.
Is that code for something? Someone look that up. If that's drug slang, I need to know it.
And he's like, no, this is a bad practice for the industry. This will destroy games. Gamers, stand up. This is a problem, right? But the reality is he's been cucking children and fucking gamers out of all of their money, and he's refined that shit into a system over the last decade, right? And he's one of the most successful systems that have done just that. Their games rely entirely on predatory business practices and predatory sales practices in order to trick and coerce their customers into spending money that they otherwise wouldn't. I talked about this when I did the Roblox video, where I really broke down how many different sales practices, predatory sales practices, are cooked into these games, how they're largely a predatory sales practice with a game attached, right? And the bulk of these games have been designed with the sales structure, the shop, as the principal design of the backdrop, right? That's where the logic comes from. They build the game thinking about how they're going to make the problems and sell you the solution. And how are they going to streamline you through the shop? How are they going to, make you want to go back to the shop? How are they going to make you want to come back every day? Like that. These are the things that this company in particular, they're the king of them. They're the king of the microtransactions. They're the biggest dogs out there in the fight, and they have the most to lose from any kind of change. But largely, we need to approach microtransactions with a air of genuine nature and say that they are intentionally ambiguous. Right? To word that another way, sales practices inside of gacha games, inside of phone games in general, they're very malicious. They're trying to get your money. They're trying to trick you into getting addicted to spending money on whatever this is, right? And like a lot of people would do, like the inference they do, a drug dealer giving you one-time free kind of deal. There's a bit of that to it, where they're trying to coerce people into spending money, or they're trying to simplify the process, streamline the process, so that kids can easily access their parents' money, and everything that has to do with spending money in all of these games, which are largely children's games, is based through gambling, right? A large percentage of the sales that you'll make in these games will be gambling based, right? There'll be loot boxes, or you'll be buying something that you'll turn in, like a ticket or whatever, that you'll put into a fucking vending machine that'll spit out a reward, right? So like it's mostly all gambling practices as well. So it's not only are you trying to target down, in a lot of instances, children with predatory sales practices, but you're also trying to groom them into gamblers, either directly or indirectly.
EU wants to kill microtransactions. Thank God. This has been, and I really think that microtransactions in games...
Hold on. I'm going to go lapel style. Here we go. Oh. Okay, maybe too small. Yeah, we'll go down here. Yeah, that works.
It's just there's too many of them now. There's way too many of them. W? Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, the EU are up to regulatory
Tiny, oh
shenanigans
no!
again. The question is, will this be good for us or will it be bad for us? And with that in mind, here's a quote. Let's not kill one of Europe's few tech success stories. That was a rather damning statement given by the CEO of Supercell, and its latest shot in a war that has been silently raging since April, because that's when the EU unveiled new guidelines for microtransactions.
If your idea of tech success is guilting and like tricking kids into spending their parents' money, like I wouldn't really say that's a tech success. That's like saying a Nigerian prince email scam is a tech success.
Actions in gaming. And now, after a summer of adjustment, the industry is speaking out. Now,
That's basically more or less what I was kind of saying, right? Like, this industry has been based off of a insidious business practice that is largely based around gambling practices and using sales practices that trick people's mental state, right? These are like car salesman tactics that have been refined over decades and decades, if not centuries, in some styles or inferences, right? The problem is when it becomes hyper refined and there's so many of these insidious like business practices or sales practices all cooked into one thing, and then you target it towards children, right? That's a problem. What it ends up doing, especially when gambling is a recurring theme in many of your sales practices, well, that's grooming children into normalizing gambling, which should definitely be seen for what it is, and brought to kids for what it is, as largely a affluent way to spend money that is largely loss based, right? Like, I think that should always be the way that we approach this with our kids, is that gambling is loss based from the beginning. It is effectively throwing money away. But there is instances where there's a return on it, but for the most part, throwing money away.
obviously, in one way, that's all kind of hilarious. And we do sort of think, yeah, you've rammed our games full of this bullshit. A lot of it has felt fairly manipulative. It's probably good that someone is getting involved. In big picture, that is what I think.
I do think so. I think they should regulate microtransactions, absolutely. Any sort of payment, like basically, I think they should make it to where you can only buy things in video games for the local currency. So there are no gems, there are no tokens, there are no crystals, there are no primo gems, there are no, icons, there are no tickets.
Yeah, see, like, I think it's fine to have the currency in the system if there's one currency type and you can directly see the conversion to dollars beside it. I think that if you directly display the conversion to currency beside the fake currency, then it's fair. The problem is when it's not being displayed as the genuine difference, and you go through layer on layer on layer of currency obfuscation, and that is entirely just to discredit or to make it so that the consumer has no concept of how much money they've actually spent to get to the point that they're at.
There are no coins, there are no bars, there is no silver, there is no gold, there is just dollars or European fucking whatever the fuck they use over there, European euros, anything, right? No V-Bucks. Yes, local pricing only. Now, I would be willing to
Okay, I'm too small. Let me come back a little bit here. Look at like this. Do like this kind of thing? Boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, I'm sorry.
Compromise with local pricing being required next to the pricing in terms of the gems.
Yeah, see.
And in terms of everything else. I would be okay with that compromise, but even that I think is just, it's obfuscation.
Sad.
Because again, like,
I don't think it's an obfuscation if you literally have the price tag next to it, right? The whole thing is that you need to display to the customer the actual end price tag. And any transaction that happens where you're not displaying to the customer the end price tag, it's manipulation. There's no way that you can go into a price, like into a business deal and be like, the guy, you go into a business deal, you sit down at the table and the guy says, all right, we need 100 diamonds. It's like, wait, what? What the fuck does that mean? Like, oh, that's no problem. To get 100 diamonds for us, you just gotta go get 1,000 tickets. Like, okay. Like, what the fuck do I, like, what do you get? Oh, for the tickets, it's, you just gotta go, so we have a contract deal with Sears, sorry, actually, they don't sell tickets directly, I misspoke. They will sell you, what's rupees? Yep, they have the rupees over there. You take those, and you can purchase the tickets with those. It's like no business deal would ever work like this, right? It would always be like X amount of dollars. What is the X amount of dollars, right? The only reason why we put up with this theme park nonsense is that we're allowing it. We've become normalized to the idea of theme park currencies and our money being inefficiently spent for whatever nonsensical reason that the dealer gets to deal. Like the deal, the whoever is running the game kind of gets to dictate the rules, and we've allowed this for a long period of time now to happen, where people can dictate the rules into currency, into levels of currency obfuscation, which is not only just to disguise the amount of money that you're spending. That is one reason why they do this. It's also to force you to spend your money inefficiently. And what I mean is, the majority of these games, if any of you guys, you can tell me if you've played a game where you've ever spent any amount of money in there, right? You say you spend $100 or whatever on V-Bucks. Any of these games that you've spent money in, you probably have some amount of their paid currency left right now in your account, right? If you were to log into your League of Legends account right now, there's probably some small amount of currency of their currency in that account that you can't spend because it's not enough of their currency to be able to buy something with it. And that's intentional. That's very intentional. They intentionally set the price points of what you can purchase, the amounts of money that you can purchase, and they make them intentionally inefficient against the purchase points that you can achieve. It's like the whole 12 hot dog buns, 8 hot dogs in a pack kind of deal. Well, if you buy that, you end up with the extra, you either got extra hot dogs or you got extra buns. At the end of the day, you can't just get 12 hot dogs and 12 buns, which is what you can now you can do this, right? Now, like that's now you can just get your 12 buns and 12 hot dogs, but they are still in the system where they're allowed to sell you 12 buns for 8 hot dogs, where they're allowed to, intentionally make your purchases just stupidly inefficient. And so, like, there's things like this where it's just directly malicious sales practices. And while this one alone isn't problematic, they've been allowed to operate for so long now without any real oversight that their sales systems have become like damn near a perfect system where everything in them. I'm talking about the shops for games like Clash of Clans, shops for games like Fortnite and things like that, right? Where these stores have had years, in fact, to dedicate to hone down and refine their business practices to be as malicious as possible. Malicious, maybe not the best word to use there. To be as successful as possible, and through that, becoming malicious, right?
The reason why they have those tickets and all those different currencies, the reason why they exist is so you don't know how much money you're spending, right? It's to confuse you.
It's that, yeah. Like I said, it's to make it not directly apparent how much money you've spent. If you wanted an axe in a video game, and they would sell you the axe for 100 diamonds, but you can't buy diamonds. You have to buy V-Bucks, and you turn those V-Bucks into tickets. And you put the tickets into the system that maybe will give you a diamond. So if somebody says, okay, well, that axe is 100 diamonds, how much does it actually cost? Well, you don't know. It's impossible to know because you don't know how many times you're going to have to spin the wheel, to how many tickets you're going to have to pump into the lottery machine to get those diamonds. And like the more that they can layer your currency and force you to go through inefficient currency systems to get you to where you want to be, the more money they're going to be able to make off of you in the long run.
It's to like abstract the money that you're spending and to separate you from the dollar amount, and that way you're confused. And on a fundamental level, what are you doing? You're misleading the customer.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you should have a business model that's built around misleading the customer. That's bullshit.
Yeah, and it's also, like I said, it's not only the misleading, but it's also the intentional price pointing, inefficient price pointing. I think this should be illegal. I really do. I think that you should be able to buy as much of a currency, if they're forcing their purchases through a currency type, you should be able to buy as much or as little of that currency type as possible, outside of like a minimum purchase amount for, you know, for fucking transactional fees. Like, I understand that, but how are we, you know, it's just, it's crazy.
People in the industry are saying that this will ruin everything that they've built.
What I was saying is, like, I do believe fully that they should make it so that if something costs $9, that you should just be able to buy that thing for $9. It should be illegal that if your battle pass is $9, you can only spend 11 on V-Bucks. Right? Like, how does that make any sense? How is that not illegal?
I mean, just look
Good. Maybe you shouldn't have built a piece of shit.
Yes.
what the Supercell dude said. Basically, according to a lot of
Yes, this shit is the exact, I have the exact same opinion with this as I do about tipping in restaurants. All right, I have no sympathy for businesses that are going to fail because tipping is holding their waiting staff like in a living wage situation. If your business design, it requires your customers to tip your waiters for them to survive, then your business design is fucking stupid. And there's this is proven everywhere else in the world where waiters and waitresses are not required to be tipped. The United States is the only country that does that. The only country that when you go into a restaurant, the expectation is that you'll tip the waiter. So yeah, it's the same kind of logic where if your business is designed, if your restaurant's finances are designed around the concept that your customers have to tip your staff, have to pay their money to your staff for them to survive, your business design is fucking stupid. And it needs to be gutted. Right? Like, there's no world where this business design should have been allowed to succeed. And yes, this business has massively blown up by massively utilizing these predatory sales practices, and that much shows, right? Like, people not willing to step back and admit that there are a lot of nefarious practices being taking place here. It's just disingenuous. But at the end of the day, people like money. I know it's wild. I know nobody was ready for that one, right? That's the hot take that's going to get clipped to oblivion. Yep. Yeah, it turns out people like money. And these guys, they have a lot of money, and they're going to do everything they can to hold on to that.
them, they say these regulations would worsen the player experience and also wouldn't improve protections.
How is the player experience improved by having to spend money in your game?
How is the player experience improved by having pop-ups constantly that get in the way of you playing your video game? How is the player's experience improved by the problem being, the solution to the problem being sold? How is the player experience improved by the game being built and designed with the fundamental concept of going through the store and being a vehicle of purchases, not a detract to the player? Like, what are we even talking about here? This is so just disingenuous and detached from the reality of the situation.
It's not.
Certainly is a bit that I'm at least interested in. They also say that this would cause widespread collateral damage to one of EU's biggest tech success stories.
Thank God.
Good.
So here's the thing. He's not entirely...
Yeah, I'm not, again, I side with Asmon on this. I'm fine with that. If you've built your empire on shitty business practices, that's really on you.
Wrong. He's not entirely right. There's definitely stuff for us to talk about, and this one's going to be a goddamn trip. And I get this all can be a lot. We've got tariff and trade negotiations affecting everything from Switch 2 pricing to gaming privacy laws, and that means you need a full picture. And that's where ground news comes in. It's where I go to cut through the clickbait and to understand what's happening. And
what? Texas is being sued by a big tech lobby group over the state's new law that requires app stores to verify user age and impose restrictions on users under 18. That is a W. And these tech companies need to be, they need to get put on blast for how shitty they are for even calling this into question. If you need to prey on children for your game to be successful, your game should not be successful. If you are reliant on a lack of there being any kind of age verification in order for your product to be like successful, well, your product is dog shit, and I don't want that on a platform. I don't want that on a device that my kids have access to. You know, like, I think that this is certainly something that the parents should have their own take or their own say on this. They should be able to dictate whether the things on their phone are age verified or not age verified. I'd say that in all instances it should begin with age verification. But I could see a world where, you know, adults could have it set up on their phone where their age is verified on their device, kind of deal. You know, there's a lot of ways to attack this. There really is. But at the end of the day, it's just trying to ensure or keep kids away from social media as much as possible. I'd be okay with just making it illegal for them to be on social media, if I'm being honest. How much nonsense has happened in the world because of fucking teenagers posting on X? You know, like, even with the instance with the DHS threat tape, or the threat video that came out, right, where the guys were putting up a $50,000 bounty to attack ICE officers. I mean, those were kids. It was a 19-year-old at the head of the pack, but everybody else there was a kid. You know, shit like that is a perfect example of why we need to keep kids off of social media, because when they realize that the shittiest sort of behavior is the most rewarded, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to go to the grocery stores and start licking fucking ice cream. They're going to go to Japan and hump the fucking, you know, a statue there. They're like, all these things come through that. It's like, you gotta keep them off of this shit when they're in their teens, because they need to understand that sensationalism needs to be curtailed. It needs to be curtailed, and what, like, we're seeing honestly in social media now, where the most incendiary topics, the most incendiary subjects and opinions and takes on things are the most viewed. So people are directly rewarded. The more incendiary their actions are, the more rage baiting their actions are, right? The more they get rewarded for that. The only thing that draws the line is being held responsible, right? The only thing that stops people from just absolutely popping off and only doing hateful content, hateful rhetoric, calls to violence, the only thing that stops people from churning those things on a regular basis is being held responsible for them. So we need to make sure that we are holding these people responsible for these things on a very regular basis. We cannot allow hateful rhetoric, as far as like violent speech. You know, we cannot allow these things to become platformed in any way, shape, and form. And we do need to attack them when they do pop up, because they are the most incendiary type of content. It is the fastest growing. So like, when kids see this when they're young, what does it do? Well, they want to think of ways to be more hateful, to be more violent, to be more incendiary, to be more successful. Because it's rewarded with updoots. It's rewarded with that feel-good fucking, you know, surge of dopamine of getting a video that pops off. And it will. You know, because that's how the internet reacts to these things. But then in the instance with the DHS kid, that very much might have ruined his life. Probably did. The Department of Homeland Security having his fucking mugshot, you know, pulling all of his information, putting him on blast for threatening police officers. Yeah, probably ruined his life. And I don't really feel much sympathy for it, if I'm being honest. He was still threatening a police officer. He was still old enough to understand that there was some level of what he did that he knew what he was doing was wrong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have immediately deleted the video and lied about it. So there was part of him that knew what he was doing was wrong. But he did it anyhow because he wanted the clout. So there becomes this area where, you know, when you're making content now, where you have this very fine line where with a certain audience, that if you're trying to facilitate this hateful and violent audience base, there is a very, very slim line of just your normal rhetoric, your normal hateful rhetoric, and violent rhetoric. And these channels that play with this, that flirt with this, eventually will have violent rhetoric because it's the most successful. So that it's just this is why I believe that kids need to be kept off social media entirely, at least until 18. I think that you shouldn't be able to post on social medias until you're 18. I think if kids need, I think we need some form of a agreed upon across the fucking aisle sourcing of media that is allowed to be used in schools. I do. I think that's a big part of the problem is that most schools can't agree on what news station they watch. And when you have, you know, a staff body of people that work in a place that are getting fed two completely conflicting at times sources of information, it's very problematic for the students. I'd personally like to see more of an advocacy of general news agencies like Ground News. They're a good one. I'm not sponsored. I just wanted to throw this out there because this is a news site that genuinely is focused on displaying the news, but also showing the slants. Right? If I were to go to, this is a centrist article. There's no political slant on it. You know, so center stations, it shows what news stations have reported on it, which these are all like centrist kind of news stations. And then if you were to go to, you know, Republican Party, actually, where is, we'll just find like a blind spot. So another thing that they do here is called blind spotting, where if there is zero coverage of any particular story from the left or the right, you'll go into here and it'll show, you know, 90% of media sources talked about this, only 11 in the center and 0 on the right. So it has it like really refined down into where these news articles are coming from and what their takes are, why they have that political slant. So like this, I love this website actually. I wish that this sort of behavior was more promoted. Just this open acknowledgement, right, that there is political slant very constantly in the news, and just directly stating it for what it is, and stating, yeah, okay, so this is happening in the news. The leftists, you know, the Democratic slant on it is this direction. You know, the Republican slant on it is this direction. You know, and this is the centrist information, and it's like you let them come to their own conclusions. You know, that should be the basis of that should be the basis of our foundation for any kind of news and any kind of a school system. It should be this targeted foundational approach where you're approaching it from a genuinely neutral perspective, with even an outside-in perspective on the politics themselves.
And that's where Ground News comes in. It's where I go to cut through
I'm not sponsored, I swear. Okay.
the clickbait and to understand what's happening. They're today's video sponsor.
For me, the way I get my news is I just make it up.
Yeah.
And here's the story of the EU pushing back
Based.
against Trump's tech regulation threats. We've got 107 sources here covering it, but a striking 63% on the left, 29% in the center, and only 8% on the right. That's an imbalance that put it straight into Ground News' blind spot feed.
I believe it.
And the headline comparison is kind of fascinating here. You've got Le Monde, a left-leaning and rated very high factuality outlet, running EU defends its digital rules as sovereign right after Trump's tariff threat. Another outlet, Americans for Tax Reform, who are right-leaning with mixed factuality rating, flips it, saying Trump slams EU digital regulations as discriminatory attack on US giants. So you see the same diplomatic clashes, but opposite heroes and villains. And just those factualities alone show you where you are or are not seeing spin. So ground actually means what you see is reliable. And when only 8% of right-leaning outlets are touching a major piece of US-EU tech news, yeah, you're kind of missing
I swear this is not an ad for Ground News.
how this is playing politically. Now, I get all...
Honestly, the reason why is because all of these people and what they do is, what do you call it? Like, these news outlets are total fucking propaganda places. Totally full of shit, totally propaganda.
All of this with Ground News...
Did you lose your check mark in Twitter? Yeah, because I changed my profile picture.
Oh my gosh, everybody call it out. Did you get your check mark taken away for some of the shit you said on Twitter? Like, nah, bro, he just changed over to the South Park Asmongold dude. Yeah, it seems like the way that they're trying to characterize international tech breakthroughs, it's like basically they're just using American tech to scam Americans. It's not really a tech breakthrough.
Plan. It gives you bias
It
ratings from
checked.
3 independent agencies, side-by-side headline comparisons, and with, say, their tech interest page, you can just see all the tech stories from all the angles. And if you go to ground.news/Bellular, you'll get 40% off unlimited access with the Vantage plan. That's the plan that I use, and that is the best deal of the year for my subs for limited time. So if you want to check it out, hit up that link down below.
Wow.
Here's a fun fact.
Was that Tiger Woods?
This was kind of kicked off by a Swedish horse girl game. Yeah,
That's what you get.
Here we are. Let's get into the story. The autumn legislative sessions are starting, and we're right at the end of the consultation period for the Digital Fairness Act. So, would you like some fairness in digital format? Maybe
No,
this act is
no.
for you. Now,
Should
what
be
it
fake.
is
Everything
an
should be fake.
overarching EU legislative agenda that covers loads of tech fields and where they intersect with consumer protections. Now, for our purposes, it includes features like deceptive interface design, where,
called it? Yeah.
well, there's all sorts of shady shit that they do. Manipulative elements, addictive elements, and
Yeah, like up here, he didn't do a really good job of showcasing what he's talking about, but so this is 4 different kinds of currency in this game. This is what I was talking about, where you forgot, you know, your L, this is, I don't know, your L with a thingy on it, your L without a thingy on it, your freaking gems with a thingy on it, and your gems with no thingy on it. And then the things in the store cost 60 gems. How much you want to bet? You said you have to buy this to buy like this, that you turn this into this, and then you get that.
all sorts of shady shit that they do. Manipulative elements, addictive elements, and unfair
Oh, I remember I got that character.
personalization practices. You might think, oh, I love the
The 800% value. Oh my god.
I remember I got that character.
personalization practices. You might think, oh, I love
I
things
remember Emmy rolled for that character, and she spent all of her money and time making that character as good as she possibly could.
And then he spent $3,000 and got his better.
Mine was still better. And it wasn't even close. Isn't that sad?
to be personalized.
There's layers to that sadness.
Less so whenever a game
Damn,
is
was
trying to
entertainment,
exploit
yeah.
you really wanting that next
That's how it is.
upgrade and is giving you a targeted deal. It probably has 900% value or some made
Oh, 800% value? I'm gonna buy it right now.
It hits consumer vulnerabilities and where people can be exploited. Now, you may remember our coverage from back in April, where we
Well, it's all about digital price pointing. I think the biggest thing that people really need to start attacking is digital price pointing and their perception of digital price pointing, because it's kind of obnoxious the amount of value we've allowed companies to attribute to things that are nonsensical. And it's also frustrating because that they're intentionally anchoring price points obnoxiously high in order to facilitate making it seem as though you're having a value gain when you make a purchase on a discount. Right? You see this shit all the time. I think that even in this clip that they were just...
elements, addictive elements, and unfair.
Oh, I remember I got that character.
Okay, so yeah. So this right here, the price pointing, 800% value. That's literally price pointing. So what they're talking about is they're saying that these items on their own are worth, like, for example, if this is $12 worth of gems, they're saying that these items in their normal value, at their normal evaluation, like off the shelf, you're getting that. So a better way to see this is there's an egg that's 3,000 Robux or whatever, right? But they'll put that egg on sale. It'll say 3,000 Robux is $10. You know, but they'll put that egg on sale and they'll say it's 80% off. So, you know, you got 300 Robux for your egg. Sorry, it would be 600? Yeah, 600. So, you know, so your perceived savings is that you're saving like $2,400 or whatever, right? The discount is making it $2,400 cheaper. That's where this 800% value comes in. The reality is this number was nonsense from the beginning. They're layering their nonsense by basically capturing their improper evaluation of these items and stating that they're giving you more value by reducing the cost of these items, but the reality is the starting price point was always fictitious. So it's like layers on layers of bullshit. Not only are they making you buy different layers of currency to spend your money inefficiently, they're cranking the price pointing up on virtual items that actually have no real world value, really. That way they can tell you that you're getting a 800% value deal.
Personalization practices. You might think, oh, I love things.
I remember Emmy rolled for that character, and she spent all of her money and time making that character as good as she possibly could. Mine was still better. And it wasn't even close. Isn't that sad?
To be personalized. Less so whenever a game is trying to exploit you really wanting that next upgrade and is giving you a targeted deal. It probably has 900% value or something.
So there's a whole bunch of them actually going on here too. You also notice they have immediacy right here with that this deal only lasts for another hour. For only one more hour, you have access to this deal. And it's the same shit they've been doing with selling cars for fucking ever, right? I got somebody coming in later on. You know, they're trying to reduce the timetable to make you want to make the purchase sooner, or to make you feel like fear of missing out, FOMO. They make you feel like you're gonna miss this deal if you don't do it right now.
800% value. I'm gonna buy it right now.
It hits consumer vulnerabilities and where people can be exposed.
And like most of us look at this and it's a joke, right? Most of us look at this and we don't waste our money. I think it's important to note that this shit doesn't prey on everyone. Most people see this shit for what it is, at least at some basic level. They see this shit. This shit.
Unfair.
Oh.
And at some basic level, they recognize, right, that this is bullshit. You know, it's some kind of, they're trying to scam you out of your money. Most people kind of realize that. The problem is the people that do the spending are the people that basically, the 1% that this shit works on, or whatever percent that this shit works on, it works really, really well on. And that's why you'll see cases where the majority of people don't have problems with gambling on gacha games, but when you do see them happen, they're bad. They're really bad. Like, we watched a video not long ago about that kid that had spent $75,000 on Kingdom, whatever the fucking game was, Kingdom something. You know, like the people that really do fall victim to this shit, they very, very much fall victim to it. You know, it's the sort of people that will gamble their lives away. So it's also, most of these things are being cooked into children's games. And when you have all these nefarious business practices, these normalizations of gambling, these practices that remove you from the acknowledgement of how much money you're spending, and focusing and targeting that towards our kids, you know. But when you start grooming children into detaching from how much money they're spending, into gambling for gains, into expecting that reward to come out of the lottery machine as a reward for their, you know, like that, these sorts of things, even in the instances where the kids spend a shit ton of money right now on the credit card, that's bad. That's bad. But that's not what we're talking about here, right? I'm not even really worried about those kids. That's shitty. Really, I feel like that's kind of on the parents. That's an instance where it's on the parents. I do think that. If you allow your kid to spend your money on your fucking phone or whatever, you kind of fucked up. And I've done that. Like, when my daughter was 3, she bought Duolingo, the Pro Pack, for a year. Yeah, she bought the Pro Pack of Duolingo for a year. We were very tight on money. Very tight. She was 3. I was, working 2 different jobs. We were very tight on money, and she bought that shit. It was like $120. And like, I didn't know what had happened until it was like the next day or whatever, when I saw that transaction had gone through, it finally rolled through, and I had to go, figure out what the fuck happened. Basically, by the time they have like a 48-hour window or some shit on their refunds too. So like, I couldn't even get the fucking purchase refunded anymore. So we just had a year of Duolingo Plus. Yeah, I never let that happen again. I didn't even know that she could make the purchases on there. It was kind of, basically, I let her on my phone. Normally she never gets on my phone. At 3, because I was letting her do a Spanish. We were doing like a Spanish thing together. And yeah, I guess when I wasn't paying attention, she said, I just saw the really pretty bird and I clicked on it. And it was the Duolingo bird. And yeah, that Duolingo bird sold her fucking Duolingo Plus for a year. And it's, that's a lot of this shit. It's targeted towards kids. Like, especially the Duolingo stuff. A lot of their advertisements, to me, seem like they're very much oriented towards children, or trying to coerce children. But yeah, so like, I've had this happen myself, where my daughter spent some money on my card, but letting it become a habit is another thing entirely. And really, though, the problem with these business practices isn't that little Billy can spend $5,000 off of his mom's card, 1 week and screw her up. That sucks too. But what I'm more concerned about is the natural grooming that is happening by normalizing these processes, by normalizing this style of contract, this business interaction, this style of gameplay, of reward process. I'm worried that this, like, having all of these elements cooked into the games that the kids are playing, that will, through time, groom them into gamblers. I think it's very easy to see how one would lead to the other.
I remember I got that character.
Personalization practices. You might think, oh, I love things.
I remember Emmy.
So that's when the EU took on microtransactions, and what happened is that the Consumer Protection Cooperation Network, rolls off the tongue, laid out some new key principles. And this all came as a part of a case made against the Swedish mobile game Star Stables. Now, what we're talking about today...
The Virgin Star Stables versus the Chad Una Musume. You don't hear anything like this happening to Uma Musume, do you? Absolutely not.
No, it's because Uma Musume is a great game.
The Digital Fairness Act and its consultation period, it is building
Fucking
on
base.
those principles from the whole horse game saga. Now, what that means is new systems requiring real monetary value on listings, not just, made up gem bullshit. Removing...
Wait, so they were watching the stream? Damn!
Multiple currency options, ensuring refunds are available. Imagine that, a refund on a gem.
By the way, most gacha games, and you don't learn this until you play a gacha game and you buy it, or do you do anything like this? Most gacha games, if you refund a purchase, they will ban your account. 100% ban. Do not pass go, do not collect anything. Well, I guess you get your refund back, collect your refund back, and yeah, go directly to banned. It's the case in Raid Shadow Legends. This is the case in almost every single gacha game out there. If you get flagged for refunding purchases, they'll just ban your account.
Crazy stuff. And also ending a lot of the FOMO practices. And especially because these things were often targeted toward kids.
Which, just to say, like, to throw in, like, there was kind of a reasoning behind that. The reason behind that was because people would spend $1,000 on in-game currency, buy a bunch of shit, progress their character, and then refund it. And in that instance, like, what's the game developer supposed to do? It's not just so easy to just like try and roll back a character, and in a lot of situations, that's not at all going to be a realistic answer.
But also, they would apply to everyone because games would need to implement them across the board. Now, at the time, the industry was obviously not really thrilled. They love making money from all of the things that I just listed.
Here's the thing. A lot of these companies make a bunch of money because they're able to hoodwink stupid kids into spending their parents' money. This is a predatory system. It's based off of something that shouldn't be happening. It's fundamentally unethical, and there should be laws and regulations that keep it in check. Anybody that disagrees with that is either getting paid because of it or retarded.
That feels sketchy. And they framed these as new legal theory.
I think there is both nefarious and not nefarious practice happening in this space. I don't think all of the business practices that are employed are malicious. In fact, in any individual circumstance, any of these things individually is not so reprehensible, right? A lot of these strategies individually are just very normal things that are used in sales pretty regularly, like, car salesman tactics. It's the problem when it's become a vacuum of just almost so much of these sales practices that it's become nonsensical just how bad of an experience it is for the consumer.
As a disruption that could see games pulled from the EU if those games couldn't comply. Think about the poor monetization designers, guys. But where things left off is
oh my gosh, the fucking chat is just non-stop about cutie Cinderella. Oh, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Supposed to work with them, work with the industry to help implement everything. But 6 months later, the industry mood has not improved, and they are quite worried. That open letter from the Supercell CEO, and by the way, Supercell are the Clash of Clans people, so
I'm thinking about going back to Clash of Clans pretty soon. I'm thinking about playing it again.
Some top tier creative gaming content. That's just one of several press efforts that we've seen in recent weeks. But it's the most striking one from a senior figure. Basically, he says that he doesn't want the EU's 20.
I mean, he's got enough money to be successful in the space. He could probably, keep up with some of the oil princes that probably set the standard. God, I can't stand phone games anymore, I'm going to be honest. Most phone games are so bad. I try, but I don't know. I did the Warcraft Rumble for a little bit, but really playing Warcraft Rumble, the only way that I could play it, that it was like fun and seamless for me, was when I played it on my PC. Because like mouse speed and cursor speed and click precision and stuff like that is incredibly important in that game. But even that game just got fucking boring, and it's just so, at the end of the day, simplistic. I have one game on my phone right now. What the fuck is the name? Okay, so technically I have Summoner's War from back when they did the Tekken thing, but after I got Paul on my team, I actually got 2 copies of Paul for my team in Summoner's War. After I got them, I stopped playing the game entirely. I haven't been back. So I have that. Technically, I have that on there, but I also have Acecraft. I think I've played that game twice. Acecraft is like, it's like kind of Cuphead art style, where it's like a shooter like Cuphead, except it's like a plane shooter like Galaga or Asteroids or whatever, where you're advancing forward as a plane. So it's that style of game, with like funny, cartoonish humor. I played it twice because they sell it as having local co-op. And I was like, well, that would be really cool if my daughter and I could, play local co-op on this game. We could both have our little plane and be flying around shooting stuff. I thought that'd be fucking cool. Yeah. Then I downloaded the game and found out that in order to unlock the local co-op, you have to get to like chapter 4 or some shit like that. And to give an idea of how long it takes to get to chapter 4, I played the game for like a few hours that night to get through chapter 1. So like I'd have to play this game for damn near a week, pretty much, to unlock local co-op to be able to play with my daughter. So the one game that I put on my fucking phone to actually give them a chance, they totally shit the bed. Like, there's no shot I'm gonna play this game on. And the other thing is, I think I would also have to do, I think I'd also have to level up her account on whatever device that she's playing on, also to get to the point of local co-op. And like, yeah, I'm definitely not gonna spend 2 weeks leveling both fucking accounts just so we could play this silly ass game together. So it's just, yeah, it's just like the few phone games that are out there right now, even the ones that are okay, they're too simplistic. They're boring in a lot of ways.
27 billion euro industry harmed by the DFA or the guidelines that came in March.
Of course. Yeah, you don't want to lose money. Okay, yeah, wow, what a surprise. I can't believe it. Oh my God, what a shock. You don't want to lose money.
This year, and he argues that they will, quote, break how many games fundamentally work, that they will harm the player experience. And
new business strategies are being made.
He uses a familiar metaphor for how in-game currency works, but it's one that was okay per the legal framework before the new guidelines in April. Yeah. And basically he talked about theme park tokens. The idea that a family can buy tokens in bulk, or they can buy tokens individually, or they can even win tokens in a theme park. And to him, this is all framed as, quote, convenient and...
Retard argument, retard logic, retard argumentation. The difference is that it's the same as like the difference in like a strip club versus like an online OnlyFans, like or like a casino versus an online website where you can gamble. A casino that you go into has in-person age verification, and you're accompanied by a adult that is there to chaperone you around in the area. If you compare this to video games, these video games do not have that same type of thing. Everybody knows that, and because of that, Q's Live, I get that. I don't want to hear it again. But like I'll look at it later. I don't want to like fucking watch it live. I'll watch it later on. And so anyway,
people just will not shut the fuck up about Cutie Cinderella in his chat. Holy shit, that would annoy the crap out of me. He addressed it earlier. Just shut the fuck up about it.
Anyway, it's not even just kid. It takes advantage of our brain's reward centers to get you to
He's obviously trying to talk about this right now.
I think that if you want to get into it takes advantage of your brain's reward centers, you would actually end up painting with such a broad brush that you attack all advertising, period, right? And so, like, I do think some types of advertising maybe should be illegal, but for the most part, I think generally letting adults make adult decisions is good. Letting children make decisions that are against their best interests because of the lack of adults' supervision is bad. It's pretty simple, right?
Fun, avoiding repeated cash transactions. You know, the idea you can buy loads of tokens at once. And he then contrasts this with the potential worst case under the new guidelines, where
I think we should all take a moment and address, though, how would these new gaming regulations influence Zoran Mamdani's aunt? These are the real questions we need to ask.
Individual parental approval for each token used, including signed contract agreements, regardless of purchase value and all of that, would basically harm the experience.
Exactly, it would. It would harm the... You're right, it would.
He's saying that regardless of purchase value, rides must display a real cost in euros based on a fixed standard, not, you know, a token cost. Now, when children win prizes, they believe that those prizes are worth real money, despite obviously not being able to cash out. In his analogy, the visitors get frustrated and leave. Why? Well, because the experience isn't simpler or safer.
Well, it's simple. It is. The thing is that what's simple for you is getting their money. And maybe it shouldn't be that simple for you to be able to trick a 9-year-old into spending their parents' money. Maybe that shouldn't be simple.
It exists now. So, why change the token system? Well,
you're right, yeah. Maybe when your game is designed or catering to children, you shouldn't have a bunch of layers of currency obfuscation involved. Yeah, I could see how that would be really frustrating for a kid to understand. Yeah, you should probably take all of that out of the game entirely, right? You should probably figure out ways to, produce this behavior that you're chasing, you're pursuing, from your targeted customers, that isn't lying to them. I feel like that's the better way to do it.
His argument, he believes the existing frameworks can just be strengthened. Improve what we've got. Don't do a big new scary thing. Now, we will come back to how Supercell responds to those existing laws later on in this video. But going on, he suggests these new policies could result in companies...
They're also forcing video game companies that rely on optional purchases of in-game content to look at other business models like advertising-based revenues, which we all know undermines the user experience.
Yeah. Yes. If you have to put ads into your game to supplement the difference that these shitty business practices like cultivated that amount, like, yeah, if you have to shore up the amount of money through advertisements and it detracts from your game, good.
Well, how about you just figure out, like, the thing is that if your business...
I'm so glad he does that too. All right, that is so fucking vindicating right here. That is so fucking nice because I do that shit all the time. Oh, man.
Requires you to engage in unethical practices in order for it to exist, maybe your business shouldn't exist.
Yes.
That's the main problem. Is that, like, if you...
Yes, if you would have to replace your shitty systems with advertisements to shore the money gap up that you need, well, that means that it was never self-sufficient on its own premise. It was always it was always built on taking advantage of the customer base, right? Manipulation of the customer base. Because if you take away the sales practices, like these insidious sales practices, if you just slap a price tag on the things that they're selling, and it hurts their revenue so much that they have to destroy the quality of the game with advertisements, that is indicative of a systemic flaw at a much deeper level.
If you have your business and it's taking advantage of people and it's problematic, that's it.
Using other monetization models. Things like more in-game advertising. And this feeling has actually got a lot of backing. Multiple large European...
That's just like the shit with the fucking food stamps. I feel like this is just them threatening. They're trying to scare people. Oh, if you do this law, we're gonna have to put a bunch of ads into your video games.
Game developers sent a letter to the EU. And I have to say, a massive...
If you put a bunch of ads into my video games, then I'm not gonna play your video game anymore.
Thank you to one of our members, Neo Nebulosa, for helping us navigate the fun industrial nuances of the continent.
That's legit predatory practices? Absolutely.
For real, this shit's complicated. Now, what happened is that Euractiv saw the letter, and then industry-wide bodies like the European Game Developer Federation also got involved. And they're all very worried, and this is based on legal interpretations of current proposals and what they would mean for them.
What you have to understand is that everything that they do and everything that they say is intentionally structured in a way for them to figure out how to make you give them more money. Their goal isn't to make sure that the consumer experience is as good as possible. Their goal is to make as much money as possible.
And something to note here is that their goal, the reason why it has gotten as bad as it has, is because they're constantly revising and making new iterations on this mousetrap. They've been making iterations on this sales practice, these strategies, for a decade, if not longer now. Particularly oriented towards gacha games, I'd say a decade is pretty safe. But primarily, really, the biggest surge of it has been, over the last 5 years.
You should approach everything that they say with that mindset.
Let's go to the heart of the issue. This fundamentally comes down to a fairly simple question, but it's one with significant legal ramifications, and it's this. Is in-game currency the same as real currency? Because if it's treated as such...
Well, yeah, it's basically the same thing. It's treated the same way. I mean, if you can... Is it the same? It is and it's not, right? I mean, like, that's the answer.
As, quote, digital representations of value, then the company's
It is a digital representation of value. It obviously is. Yeah, I mean, if that's the definition of currency, these are...
I think that in any instance in which you are able to purchase a currency point, an amount of currency from one of these sites, you should be able to cash out X amount of value into money again. Right? Like you should always have a way to cash out whatever your money is So if you get left with, even as an example in this, 25 whatever coins, so you had 25 coins left over, you should just be able to cash that out, right? Because like this is like, it would be like walking out of the casino with a couple of their chips in your pocket. Well, those chips are fucking worthless to you, right? So like you might as well be able to cash this shit out.
Are digital representations of value? Nobody can argue otherwise. If you are, you're lying.
In them face significantly more scrutiny.
Yep.
And if you're thinking about, say, I don't know, banking, crypto, and other things, yeah, you're kind of thinking along the right lines. Because effectively, they would then be a little bit more like Bitcoin under the law. And to be clear, that is the position of the CPC.
I feel like it should be. Yeah, I think digital currencies should be treated as digital currencies. The fact that we've allowed them to slip by without labeling these as digital currencies is partly why they're able to get away with having these insidious business practices.
And therefore, it's inherent to the current consultation for the Digital Fairness Act, which is the big
right,
thing
exactly.
that really
Because
changes.
the moment that these are considered as digital currencies, they fall under the same legal precedents that account for, obviously Bitcoin and Ethereum and all of those. So the moment that it would fall under that categorization, there's a shitload more scrutiny behind it. So of course they don't want that.
A lot. Now, the fundamental argument is that people are putting real money into these systems, and they are getting in return for their real money a digital representation of that money in the form of products, like, say, your gems or your Call of Duty points, whatever it may be. So because of that, they should therefore have transparency and safety when they are spending.
Of course.
Now,
of course.
Yeah, wow.
How could anybody be against that who isn't trying to scam you?
Yeah. The actual W for the CPC network, we need to be more like, this is the approach that we need to have about this. And anybody that's selling you a different approach is selling you a different approach. Because yeah, the only people that want to make it less clear, that want to make it like more, the only people that don't want to have direct, concise, exacting language about business transactions are the people that are trying to manipulate you and cheat and lie and take your money through unfair means. Only the people that are making something out of it, that are making money off of it somehow, are going to be the people that are against transparency in business, right? The only people that don't want transparency are basically criminals.
Really? It's so obvious.
those are good, noble goals. But implementation...
Yeah, and if they can't survive without scamming...
And it would mean some humongous changes. Now, we can't just dismiss those things because we like the principles behind the changes. And for the avoidance of doubt, we here are very much behind those principles. And what the industry is putting forward really are based on worst-case scenarios. But that doesn't mean that they won't happen, and we should talk about it because it would impact the industry. Now, they already don't trust the EU elements implementing all of this, as flagged
Well,
by
they don't
George
trust them because they're against their best interest. It's not like they don't trust them for any sort of like a ethical reason. It's just because they're going to cause them to lose money.
Osborne, all that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, anybody that looks in these businesses, like, nobody thinks Supercell is evil yet. Right? They're not evil in the same way that the Vogons aren't evil in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. They're just bureaucrats. They're just going to make their bag. If you anticipate the most bureaucratic response from this company, you'll probably nail it on the head every fucking time.
It's the same as how companies are pissed that they have to make it easier to cancel subscriptions. Yes, like in order to cancel a subscription, you shouldn't have to click 3 buttons and go through 3 different web pages and do like a survey. You should.
Yes, we were talking about this about fucking Pirate Software earlier. The only reason why his subscription count hasn't caught up with the public perception of his subscription count is because it's harder for people. It takes more work for people to go in and unsubscribe, whereas it's very easy for them to just stop watching.
Just have to be able to click it and that's it. And anybody who's arguing against that just wants to take your money.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all they want to do.
Yeah, so like there's a massive percentage of retention earnings on subscription cancellation, right? Every layer that you add that complicates canceling a subscription makes you money. It does. So it's a problem, right? Because it's a business practice that makes money. So obviously it's going to be incentivized. And anytime we're going to attack it, you're going to be attacking money, the money that people are making. A lot of companies are making, right?
They want to take your money. They want to scam you.
Excellent
That's
video
simple.
games industry memo newsletter back in April, his sources suggested to him something rather troubling.
And that's not even like, how many of you guys have ever done this where you're trying to cancel a subscription and you can't even do it on your phone? I don't know if you've ever had this account, like, where you can't even get into the way that you cancel your subscription. You can't access that web browser, or you can't view that page or whatever. You have to get onto like a PC to do that. So like there's other ways that they can make it even more difficult for you to unsubscribe too. There was a company that did that just recently. Maybe it might have been DoorDash. I think it was DoorDash that you couldn't access you couldn't unsubscribe from their fucking Dash Pass or whatever without getting onto a PC. It was one of those two. Maybe it was HelloFresh.
For the new guidelines, the CPC did not engage with industry trade bodies, let alone get impact assessments. I know, impact assessments, it's real sexy stuff, but then again, we are dealing with, billions of euro and how the industry literally works.
Yeah.
Now, that's part of why these bodies are emphasizing certain facts. Things like, only 18% of kids are allowed to make purchases.
Wow. 20% of kids are spending. What age range? Holy shit. 20% of kids? And that's holding steady. Like, I will say it does look like it curbed up, what do you know, right before COVID. And then it like locked in right here at 20% where it's holding steady. 20% of kids are spending money off their parents' cards on video games.
Then 95% get
18% of kids. That's like 1 in 5. That's massive.
Yeah, that's
like, what do you mean only 18%? That's insane. That's a crazy ratio.
It's like, yeah, only 20% of our cars explode. It's only 20% though. You've got pretty good odds, right? If you spin the barrel, only one of them has a bullet, all right? Pretty good odds.
Supervision, and that monthly spending has actually gone down year on year, which is at least a silver lining if you're not a fan of microtransactions. But basically, the industry is putting on year.
I'd say that's pretty scary that 10% of kids are spending over $80. No, this is a yearly? All right, well, that's a horrible fucking metric. Why would you stop at 80 if it's a yearly metric, but whatever. I'd be curious to see where this breaks down. The kids that are doing the bigger spending. And I'm also confused as to why there's 2 divisions for 80 plus here. Is that... Yeah, I'd like to see this breakdown in more detail, to be honest. Because obviously that is big. I'd like to see how many of these kids are spending. So the way that they're framing this data to try and make light of the situation. But I'm sure if you were to take the same information and just put it on blast, how much the problem 4% have actually spent, it's an entirely different perspective. And again, like, I think a part of this, it should be noted, like, what kinds of purchases are these? Because, we're not really approaching the problem with a real a respectful error. If we're not saying, like, is this a intentional purchase, an unintentional purchase? Is this facilitated by the parents or not facilitated by the parents? Because I think that is those are other contributing factors as well, right? If the kids have been spending their mom's money behind their back versus if the kids have been brought up in a house where throwing money at V-Bucks is congratulated or celebrated. That's an entirely different thing.
which is at least a silver lining if you're not a fan of microtransactions. But basically, the industry is putting forward that they see all of this stuff as using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and basically
shouldn't have made the nut.
Yeah.
You made the nut. You didn't want the sledgehammer. Why'd you make the nut?
That's why
they're basically saying like, hey, this is going to crash our business. And we're saying, yep.
They've been so frustrated. Now, the CPC suggested
I'm just
that they
saying.
would work with the industry
No, that's
after
the way
they
it
did
is.
their big publication. And without direct
What?
leaks, we don't literally know what those discussions looked like over the summer. But based on current reactions, they did not go well. But more than that, apparently, the CPC also didn't work with other EU bodies.
I just had to say, Asmon managed to work a busting a nut reference into this video.
Yes, this is really getting all quite complex. People may wonder why, I don't know, nothing ever gets done. Anyway.
Yeah, it's because it's designed that way. It's a bureaucratic entropy that's created intentionally in order to obfuscate any sort of change or benefit for the actual citizens that it's supposed to represent. It happens in every single company. It happens in every single bureaucracy. It happens in every government. It happens in every system. Is that systems continually grow over time, and they do not have culling mechanisms that are able to keep them in check in a way that is healthy, and at that point, then they get worse.
This is what I was saying.
Happens. That's the way it is.
What it effectively means, the point the industry is trying to get across, right, is that this one group tried to set a new central philosophy on microtransactions, but they kind of did that without getting everyone else involved in the situation involved in what that would look like, which
It's a bureaucratic bullshit.
Messy. And for an example of said mess, we've got to say a big thanks to this pack of Lithuanian RuneScape gold farmers. To put a very messy situation in very simple terms, in Lithuania,
I mean, while the Lithuania RuneScape gold farmer thing was certainly one of the biggest instances of this, but this was an era of when selling video game currency in general was taking off and becoming a massive problem in other countries around the world. It wasn't just RuneScape, it was basically all online platform games were having these massive populations of people from other countries that were botting and, basically trying to accumulate a certain amount, high amounts of the in-game wealth and then selling that to players. Because if they spent a day farming a million gold or whatever in World of Warcraft, they sell it to, Joe frickin' Smith, who just got off his day, working all day and he doesn't have time to play Roblox. So he sells it to Joe Smith, for $40. Well, that, in his country, $40 is a month's wage. So obviously there's a massive reward structure for this out there in the world. And it created a lot of problems where there are countries in the world where their whole fucking, like, a lot of their GDP, like a lot of their fucking, all of their business and a lot of their tech industry, if you can even call it that, is just scamming Americans and and this sort of stuff.
Currency transfers are tax exempt. So because of this, the gold farm.
Yeah, I was bringing that because like a lot of there's a world where their entire monetary ecosystem is reliant on selling in-game currency to other countries. So obviously it was a big problem that needed to be targeted by actual legal systems to hone it in and prevent bad business practices.
Farmers thought that they would not have to pay value-added tax. But the Revenue Office disagreed. The Revenue Office...
What a surprise that the people that collect the money think that, actually, you know what? We need a little bit more of your money. What a shock.
Believed that the
I agree completely.
Trading a currency whenever they were doing their trades. So, yeah, they were like trading a product. And that would mean that they would need to get their value-added tax. Now, they needed clarity on the law here. So what they did is they went to the EU, and they went to a specific bit called the EU Advocate General. And the result of that was a ruling by the EU Advocate General. And that is that in-game currency should be considered as a digital second-hand product, not as
That's a W.
currency in itself.
In-game gold as an electronic service does not merely serve to procure a later consumable benefit in a form of an as yet unspecified service, which the issuer of a voucher would be obligated to supply, but is itself already a consumable benefit. Therefore, it's not a voucher within the meaning of Article 30A within the VAT directive. That's retarded because it can be both. You can spend in-game gold as a direct consumable item, and you can also use it as a currency. This is like saying that you can't melt down quarters. Or sorry, it's like saying that because you can melt down quarters and then turn them into like some type of metal, or like pennies and you can turn them into copper, that somehow, oh well, that means that that means that pennies don't have any value. This is the most retarded dumb fuck argument, and it's probably made by somebody that has erectile dysfunction with fully gray hair that can't use fucking email. It's either that or a fucking retard.
Yeah. It could be both. How much copper's in a penny anyway? I don't know what the direct one-to-one is anymore. I know that it hasn't been... I don't think that it's actually had the value of a penny. Like, I think the value point of the material versus the penny, I don't think it's ever matched up. I remember reading something about that, actually. Where it's like, ever since inception, the penny has, like, not been actually worth a penny. It's not actually copper anymore, though, right? It's zinc-coated something else. The older ones were copper, if I remember right. Hold on, let me... We will discern this. Guys, I'm not going to be able to finish this video today. So what we're going to end up doing, this will be the first time we do this kind of thing. I'm going to pause the video right where we're at, 22 minutes and 11 seconds. And we're going to intro the stream tomorrow with this video right where it's at. We'll pick up right where we left off. Yeah, hold on. We're checking. We're gonna find this out about the penny here. Darn chat being distracting. No, it's like I love. It was really the first video where I cucked myself because I was like 12 minutes into the video and we were at an hour and a half into stream. I'm like, yeah, well, we kind of yacked a little on this one. So here it is. So right now, a penny, the material value or melt value of a penny is worth approximately 0.0085. That said, even when they were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, the melt value was only 0.0. It was actually higher. So this is, yeah, I remember this is how it started off, was that it was never worth a penny, right? It started off and it was worth basically 3.2 cents. And then over time, then in the 80s, they switched the composition and they made it so that it was worth like, way less than a penny. But a penny has never actually been worth a penny. The same legal protections and things like that, which will prevent a lot of currency obfuscation and the tactics that are being, the nefarious business practices that are being used against people online. What other videos do we got up? The pennies are no more. Yeah, I've been saying they're going to transition pennies out for a hot minute. I'm going to be real. I think there's going to come a time when they just move away from, like, cash, I feel, as well, right? Like, physical currency. It's whatever. I think there's so much, like, the loss in physical currency in certain situations that I think it's just better, though. Right? Like, when you spend the $1.99 at the store and you get that penny off of it, and you leave that penny in the frickin'... Oh, hold on. I'm sorry, I had to sneeze real quick there. And when you leave the penny behind, sort of thing, like, so there's like that element of currency loss in every transaction that happens with change. So I think that I'm okay with us moving over to electronic currency because I never get scammed when I use electronic currency. I spend exactly $1.99 when I buy something with my card. You know, I think that's been one of the big reasons why I started moving away from physical cash myself. Holy cow, Kitty, it's not just about your videos, okay? It's not just about your, there's other content here too. This is one of your, this was one of your videos. Holy, I don't know. Probably? No. No. To be fair, we went over the list. We did. I did look. I did check the freaking list too. You gotta also, like, I'm gonna say, like, Monday, Tuesday are gonna be like high prio days, right? Because by the time I get to a Monday, Tuesday, there's gonna be a lot of shit that I need to talk about, right? Because by the time it gets to a Monday, Tuesday, I haven't streamed since Thursday, so there'll be a lot of shit that's like, you know, I got some stuff that's popped up in the world that I really want to talk about, you know, high priority stuff. And then, you know, we'll squeeze in, you know, Good Mythical Morning debating over which size gumball is the most ideal or whatever.
30A within the VAT directive. That's retarded because it can be both. You can spend in-game gold as a direct consumable.
Okay, my gigantic frickin' noodle is in the way. Hold on. Let's go lapel mode. Boom, boom, boom. Over here? Yeah. That works.
Item, and you can also use it as a currency. This is like saying that you can't melt down quarters, or sorry, it's like saying that because you can melt down quarters and then turn them into like some type of metal, or like pennies and you can turn them into copper, that somehow, oh well, that means that that means that
on his shoulder it doesn't look as good.
This is the most retarded dumb fuck argument, and it's probably made by somebody that has erectile dysfunction with fully gray hair that can't use
because then you can see my feet.
Fucking email. It's either that.
You just want to see my feet. I'm onto your tricks. You're trying to snipe some feet pics. Yep.
What a stupid thing to say.
Now, that's actually quite fun for today's story.
You fucking weirdos.
That's actually not how the guidelines from the CPC frame them.
Yes.
Same goes for the digital.
Be the evil conscious? I think Asmon might be the evil conscious. I think I'm the good. I don't know. I think I might be the good one in this spot.
Fairness Act proposals as well, and that just makes everything here so much messier because different.
It's only messy because they're stupid.
Of the EU, different arms of it are taking different opinions. Obviously, that makes it very hard to get.
Different opinions are because they're stupid. It's obvious. It's so obvious.
Get anything goddamn done, and that's part of why the company seems so pissed off here. To them, the CPC wants compliance with their guidelines.
Be the angel that you don't give. Hey. EU. I like to be somewhere in the middle, I guess. I don't know. I just like to be fair. Evil conscious, good conscious. I mean, I know where I get my moralities from. I'd like to see where that others too, but I'm not gonna quickly cast judge on things like that. I'm not exactly the one to be throwing rocks, right?
Judiciary is suggesting another interpretation, so they're in a way saying, "Oh no, look at us, we're caught in the middle. This is a nightmare. What do we do?" And honestly, in that case, yeah, they do have a point.
Drink water?
It's like different arms of the same body are saying different things about basically the same issue. That's obviously
all right. Hold on.
You want to know what the problem is? It's like the only metaphor, the old metaphor of a blind man, the three blind men and an elephant, right? Feeling different parts of the elephant, explaining what the elephant is, and it's completely different. You feel the trunk, it's like, oh, it's this thing, it's like a snake. You feel the side, it's like a hippo. You feel the legs, it's like maybe like a fucking deer. The reality of this is that the problem is that they're
it wasn't the trunk.
Blind. It's that they can't see that it's a fucking elephant to begin with because the commission and the people that are running this are incompetent.
Your screen is cracked. Skill issue.
And they don't know how to do their jobs. That's the reason why they can't come to a consensus on this, is because they don't fully
that's
understand
rough.
what they're even making
You
decisions
just found out your
which is
phone's broken?
embarrassing. It is
Damn.
absolutely embarrassing. And
What
I think
happened?
also-
Be honest. Did you drop it while you were on the shitter? You can tell us. You can tell the rest of the chat. Did you? Was it a? Is it a poo poo? Oops. Is it?
So there is a probably good amount of this.
That's the part. Oh, that doesn't count. What the? You just said the phone screen.
Intentional, malicious dishonesty. They do know it, but they're pretending not to, so they can protect companies that they might be making money from, or they have some sort of value attached to. It's bullshit. The reason why they're either stupid or paid off.
What do you mean it is? If it's the protector, it's not the phone screen. Those are two literally different things. Who cares about the protector? That the freaking that's a protector screen. That's literally just a case. Who cares? You can get another one of those for like $5. Now, cracking your screen's actually a big deal. Sort of. I mean, unless you got like Apple Care or whatever, right? I don't know.
Probably
also
both.
could get worse with the Digital Fairness Act being
That's such a broken nail. You broke a nail. Like,
next year. And that would mean that, well, everything that they work on, these companies that is, may now need
they
to
cost
change.
money. Yeah, a lot less than taking it to get the freaking screen fixed. You can get a new case at fucking $5. Like, come on.
Again, to comply with the new
Or $5 and below or whatever.
requirements,
That's what you get.
which would be a good thing going solely off the principles, what we're trying to protect
Yes.
to make better here. But, implementation is often the hard bit, and that is why the companies are very much worried.
Yeah, well, you can assume that there's going to be a lot of people coming out of the woodwork with varying opinions from all over the fucking place. And at the end of the day, it's all about money, right? None of these actually are genuine. All of this shit will be smoke and mirrors. It is all just people like Supercell that have infinite fucking money that are going to go on any kind of disinformation campaign, any kind of attack or direction that they can come at this from. They're going to, right? When you have infinite money and you can create infinite problems and perceptions and then try to play to whatever emotional appeals, that's what they do, right? You see this everywhere in all areas. It's not just gaming, but in politics as well too.
There. And
They're not. No. That's a lie. They're not worried about implementation. They're worried about the principle of it. They're worried about the principle of it, and they're worried about the accountability of it. They try to act like implementation is the problem, so they can make an appeal to people that are anti-government by saying that the government is a bureaucracy and ineffective. But the truth is that if the government was effective, it would be an even bigger threat to them. And it's in their best interest the government remains as ineffective as possible. That's why they try to pay people off in the government. That's why they try to continue to reinforce the status quo. This is such a very obvious fucking
may have noticed in this
So
video
obvious.
is it might all sound a little bit schizo. I mean, here I
It's
am
not
in
schizo.
1 second being very much, look at the things the Swedish horse girl game was doing.
Yes.
That's all pretty sketchy. Let's regulate some of this stuff so that, we don't have exploitative
The
bullshit
government loves
happening
me.
that's,
Yeah.
aimed at teens and stuff. And then you'll also see me, talking about the industry's points. And to understand this story,
Yes.
I think we've just got to accept a very basic
The industry's points, by the way, being, but guys, our money, guys, the money we need they're taking our money.
fact. Everyone involved is going to present their argument in the best light that they can.
Of course.
CPC will.
Right.
The people at Supercell.
That's what I just said.
I will. You will. We'll pretty much always be trying to put our argument forward in the best way. And
And it won't just be their argument. Like I said, when you have an entity like Supercell, like all of these, we're gonna see a lot of shit come out, I imagine. Like I said, there's too many people with invested interests that have infinite pocketbooks in this space.
the upshot of that is everyone involved, from their perspective, will play up the risk and then downplay anything that will undermine them. And even if we return to the Supercell dude's letter, you can start to pick holes in some of the logic that he puts forward. If you're
Well, yeah, of course you can. If you look right here, I mean, does the
What do Clash of Clans, Candy Crush, Minecraft, and The Witcher have in common? Well, I'm going to say real quick, these two are Skinner boxes that were built around a game. And these two were games that eventually had shops attached to them. I don't think these can all, in any circumstance, ever be held in the same sentence. I think it's entirely disingenuous to try and categorize anything about these four topics together. They're completely different things. And trying to compare Clash of Clans and Candy Crush to The Witcher or Minecraft is just fucking crazy, honestly.
Witcher have a bunch of microtransactions? No, it's a completely fucking it's a AAA game.
Yeah,
it's a premium game. Clash of Clans and Candy Crush comparing.
Give me just a second. I'm sorry, I got a phone call here. The roommate's friend is not answering phone calls and things. I'm gonna have to run a set of keys over to somebody here. Which I mean is what it is, you know. We're waiting on a phone call to find out though, so we'll see. In the meantime, we'll see if we can finish up this reaction. But sorry about that if that's what ends up happening here.
To The Witcher is dishonest, and anybody that knows anything about video games knows that. And this is what the problem is that
it's like I didn't even read the entire thing. I just freaking from the synopsis, like, all right, how are we going to go into a conversation where we're, as you know, in any kind of an intellectual manner, we're approaching the subject with these four conversation points being held in any kind of a similar categorization, right? They're just not. This is like, all right, so what do a cup, you know, the cup and ball game, like the cup and ball scam game, Twitch or no TikTok streaming, and Lord of the Rings have in common?
For Frodo.
Wait, what? That's literally the level of like comparison going on here. These are so far estranged from one another that it's just not even a real conversation. And the fact that they bring these all together just shows how disconnected they are from, because these are the same people that are saying like, oh, video games don't compete with other video games compete with TikTok. No, these are the same people. Like, they're just so fucking disconnected from reality.
A letter written by, four people that are retarded. They are retarded. They don't know anything about technology. They don't know anything about computers. They don't know anything about video games. And they're just going to go off of what somebody who is into space thinks. That's it.
If you're going to update his analogy to actually be accurate to the real industry, well, then his theme parks would be having 3 or 4 or 5 different types of tokens. Just look at, you know, what you see when you open a gacha game and you're just bombarded. And to undermine his points even more, he tries to talk about how, oh, you can win one of the tokens as a prize. Yeah, but in so many of these games, the only thing you can win as a prize is, like, just for participating in something, is the lowest value.
And usually, yeah, it'll be so usually they'll have tiers of their paid currency, and the only thing that you'll be able to get for free will be their lowest tier of paid currency, and then they'll make it so like characters or whatever the high demand item is, you can't even buy it with whatever that low tier of currency is. So they say, oh, but we give you some of the currency for free, so it's not entirely a paid currency. You know, you can also get it from quests and yada yada. And yet the reality is, anybody that knows they play these games, the amount of the free currency that you get in this is almost completely bullshit. Kitty, you probably know this from playing Fortnite. Have you ever gotten enough V-Bucks from Fortnite or whatever to actually buy like a whole skin? I'm curious. I know that after, like, I know that aside from like unlocking things in those games, I never got enough of the free currencies to actually get anything from them. It was always like getting it rewarded from doing stuff, sort of stuff, or maybe like if I got the battle pass. But it's like if you're getting a battle pass, then that's not free either, really, right? You paid, so you're just getting, you know, a series of rewards for money that you pay. So, but yeah, this is just disingenuous when they claim that they're giving away any amount of this currency for free, and usually it takes so long to amass this that it's any like. It doesn't even shore up the gap to get to a purchase amount usually, which is the sad part.
Of
Yes.
token. But
It still gets to the point where it's like, okay, you spend a month playing our video game, so, you know, maybe you have 500 gems or some shit, but a character will be 6,000 gems.
and you can only buy some tokens in massive bundles. Bundles that don't match the price of the product you're trying to buy.
Yep, there's the old freaking 8 hot dogs, 12 buns thing going on.
It's intentionally a scam.
Yeah, they force you to spend your money inefficiently. We've talked about this several times. They love forcing you to spend your money inefficiently. And the better they can force you to spend your money in a shitty way, the more money they get out of every dollar that you spend. Oh shit, hold on, I gotta get this again.
Exactly. And I think that what Bellular said right there really makes a lot of... I think that really just ties everything together. Is this a good consumer experience that is healthy for the user? The answer to that, I think, is obviously no. So whenever you have a system that exists as a parasite on the user, why does the system exist? Why is it not being regulated? And also, it's very important that the big difference between this and, let's say, buying cigarettes, for example, is that when you're buying cigarettes, you know what you're buying, and it's that simple. When you're buying this stuff, you're going through multiple levels of intentional obfuscation in order to confuse you about how much money you're spending. This is intentionally obfuscating.
I'm like way too big again. Here we go.
Trying to make and impair the user's ability to make an informed financial decision that the company is doing while they are trying to sell them something. That is bad faith, unethical business. And I don't see how anybody can defend that.
Such as this just web of absolute goddamn insanity does make these companies a hell of a lot of money. And when he talks about wanting to make existing legislation stronger, well, yeah, Supercell would know all that they need to know about that, because they've been accused of being non-compliant with UK loot box regulations.
Uh-oh.
You know, clearly, self-regulation and current legislation are not working for everyone.
Well, they don't want self-regulation, or they do want self-regulation because they can use that as a weapon to regulate smaller companies and pull the ladder up from them.
That's why we need these changes in the first place. But it is also true
that
he does have a bit of a point. These bodies should probably have a talk with the industry reps to implement changes in a way that won't have unintended negative impacts.
Yep.
And we have seen many examples of that. As an example, GDPR.
Oh.
You having more control over your data, all that privacy stuff, that's pretty great. But
I agree. I think it's
really
very
annoying having that pop up every time you go to a website and you got to install an extension to deal with the annoying thing. Yeah, that does kind of suck. I mean, I get the point. I agree with the principle, but the implementation clearly isn't really that great. And where it risks getting worse is that today we've been talking about the concerns from big trade bodies and companies like Supercell. And here's the thing with those groups. They've got money. They can afford to be compliant with new laws, like, say, all the stuff that's been going on with the UK's Online Safety Act and similar laws around the world. The incumbents can fork up the cash to be compliant. They can do that. Hell, if the compliance is a real nightmare, then maybe you can be an entrepreneur and sell the solution.
Oh!
But the smaller teams, the people who are just on the cusp of being sustainable fiscally, well, they'll be hurt more. The worst case scenario...
This is always what happens with regulation, but it's something that should happen to everybody. You're right that it will negatively affect smaller companies more, but ultimately, I think that more transparency and making, like... Think about what company would be against putting a dollar amount in regular currency next to every single transaction that you make inside of an in-game store. Think about what could the argument possibly be that is a bad idea and that's bad for the user.
Right. Any company that is on the fringe of cost effectiveness or breaking even, and they are, employing these tactics. Okay, well, that guarantees then that your business does, like your fucking mission statement, your business somehow is designed inherently flawed, right? If you're reliant on this shit to break even.
And that's the big problem that happens, is that I think a lot of people never think about basically,
so it's
why
fine.
Are people advocating for this?
It sucks, but it's fine.
Make less money.
Something that looks more like regulatory capture.
Like, yeah, people are people going to lose jobs because of a move like this? Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully. Because we want this shit out of the industry. We don't want this shit, right? So that it's fine. And the more we push back against this, hopefully we can try and reclaim some space in gaming from just a gambler like epidemic that's happening in fucking gaming right now, where it's like so much of the gaming space now is just Skinner boxes with different varieties of gambling attached to them, and trying to make the best mousetrap for your, involving that sort of rhetoric.
It perhaps looks like the incumbents adapting to the regulation, but then the regulation being so onerous that new companies basically can't really get started up. That can be really bad. But to cut through all that fluff, something needs to happen. And the reason why is simple. A reckoning is coming, and we are very much on the clock. Here's the deal. The Digital Fairness Act is expected to be delivered in the next year or so. And what's happening right now is the ending of the...
Imagine playing this crap instead of Musume.
Consultation period for the virtual currency stuff. And clearly, after 12 weeks of consultation, well, these companies have been reacting in this way to make a point that they don't want the Digital Fairness Act legislators to treat them the way that the CPC allegedly treated them with all of that Swedish horse girl stuff. They basically want
because they don't want to get regulated, because it's going to cause them to lose money.
Yeah.
They can make arguments about how it's actually about bureaucracy, or it's actually about some sort of principle.
Yeah.
But the only principle they care about is their principal balance.
Right, that's what I was saying. Like, and we're gonna see all kinds of arguments come out. All kinds of arguments. They're gonna attack this from every fucking direction that they can, because this is such a massive squeeze on their pocketbooks. Any kind of legislation that like limits their ability to employ these malicious business practices is just gonna cut way back on their. It might even just bury large, certain companies, right? Depending on how much of their business practice is and how close they were to breaking even anyhow. So yeah, but I'm okay with this. I think most people are. Like, we're tired of buying a gambling system, instead of trying out a new game. It's so fucking annoying. Every time you go through the store, you go through the app store on your phone, you pull up a new game, and within seconds, you've got, fucking 14 little pop-ups. You got 17 different little windows. You're trying to, swipe things, click little X's as quickly as you can as they pop up on your screen. Like, this doesn't have to be the norm. You don't have to eat the dick salad. You don't. It's like people have gotten so used to eating the dick salad, and there's a lot of these that have just, there ain't even a salad in that bowl no more. There's just dick. And somebody crudely drew a picture of a leaf on the side of it, but for real, that is not, yeah. So, yeah, we get people away from this practice of just being okay with being sold bullshit, and like, stop giving these people your money. This is how we take away them, the fuel behind these systems. And one of them is all of these gotcha systems that they really just did prey on, like, the 0.1%. It's like 99% of people this shit does nothing for, right? All of these tricks, all these bullshit little antics or whatever, the vast majority of people don't fall victim to this stuff. It's the 1% that really does, right? It's the 1%ers that do, they get fucking trucked by this, and they're the people you see the stories like, oh, I spent $75,000 on Genshin Impact. I'm like, yeah.
The truth is that the reason why they're trying to throw every wrench they possibly can into the machine is because the machine,
I literally use that analogy too,
is making them money, or the machine can stop them from making money. I think that's probably a better way to say it. That's the reason why. Like, it's not any more complicated than that at all.
to make sure that their voices are heard. And you know what? That is their right. They are literally entities contributing to the economy within the EU. So yeah, they should have a seat at that table. I want them to be listened to and respected, but also treated with the skepticism that is due, because they are very much not unbiased here. And just as these companies need to turn a profit, they also need to do so in a way that is not predatory toward the public. And
that's the thing that I don't understand why people let and give this a pass.
Right.
Because fundamentally what they're doing is misrepresenting what people are buying and making it confusing, and then relying on kids to make uninformed purchases that their parents aren't aware of. Everybody knows that's the way it works.
Ultimately, it's that last bit that's where I land. You can see enough.
This guy in this chat just said he spent more money playing Turtle WoW than he ever did on retail through subs. Bro, could you imagine? You're playing classic World of Warcraft and you're getting fucked by a gacha system? Holy. That's some dry dogging that I have bro, you have got it bad. That's one of the nice things about WoW Classic is that it doesn't have that shit. Right? It doesn't have any of that shit. It's just a pure MMO from like the yesteryear era, right? Where the games were pure back then. And so you're playing a game, like intentionally an older game, to avoid the new, like the bullshit of the newer games. But they cooked gacha into that shit too? Oh, that's fucking priceless. I'd say WoW players, classic WoW players, they have just habitualized eating dick. It's pretty bad.
Stories of this stuff going bad, or even just the simple, basic goddamn thing.
Mm-hmm.
You look at your phone, there's a social media app that's just trying to play around with your brain chemistry to get you hooked. You open a video game, and now it's doing the same thing. There's all this predatory bullshit everywhere. I don't know about you, but I've had enough. And the profit of these businesses is, yes, relevant to them, the shareholders.
Yep.
It's interesting, I'm thinking about it, and it's like, personally, I wonder what the after effects are of not just having these systems that are so cooked into everything our social media is trying to, incite the brain chemistry, activation sorts of things, but also now are what's become the natural instinct of not allowing our brains to be turned on by the things that, right? So like, there's like a natural jading that people are having now that is disconnecting them from the little sensational feeling of that dopamine rush, because we're so regularly slapped in the face with it that it doesn't have the same effect anymore.
But it's also not goddamn sacred. And the whole point of governments and bodies like these is that we can be represented.
Exactly.
And in some way, we have some buy-in to the rules of the game that everyone should be able to play fairly, which is a bit of a stupidly optimistic, lofty-ass goal. But in this case, you know what? If they make less money because they're not allowed to be as manipulative and people lose their jobs because of that, that's okay.
Too fucking bad. Exactly, yes. If your job is relying on scamming people, that's what you get. If you have to rely on unethical business models in order to make money...
Right, this is the same... I'm sorry. To me, this is the same as, like, a call center in a third world country, bitching about there being legal legislation, legal things pushed through that makes them scamming people illegal. And their businesses are getting shut down, and they're like, "Oh, but we're gonna, have to lay off so many workers and blah blah blah." It's like, well, yeah, but your business is literally fucking scamming people. So no, we're not sorry.
Too fucking bad. It's that simple.
Maximizing employment's not the only fucking goal. There's other stuff going on. There are negative externalities. That's another thing to consider. Yes, you could just deregulate gambling to the tits and then tax it and say, look at our number go up.
Yeah.
But then you can also think about the negative externalities on society that are a result of sad gambling bollocks.
A lot of gambling.
And don't worry, you guys in the US are heading in the direction that the United Kingdom has been in for a long ass time regarding the old online sports betting. Anyway,
sports betting is massive now.
I see the point. Yes, these guys should be listened to, etc., etc. Do you know what? We should have some say in the goddamn rules. and people have had enough. I know this wasn't the most light and breezy video in the world,
No,
so
I appreciate this
yourself.
video. I definitely agree
Watching
with this.
next.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real. Like, I think this is a huge problem, and I don't know why these companies haven't gotten regulated already. And I think the reason why is that a lot of people, let me link you guys a video, give it a like. This is a Bellular video. I'm a very big fan of Bellular, like it a lot, and like him a lot, excuse me, and debating in general. Yeah, and so anyway, playing games today. I'm not sure. Let me focus on this at least right for now. Good video. It's very aware. Yeah. I think the problem is a mix of corruption and ignorance, basically. I think a lot of these companies are ignorant and they don't understand what the real problems are. And because they don't understand what the problems are and they don't understand really what's going on, these companies are able to run laps around them and take advantage of them. Because
yeah, something I'd also like to note here is that a contributor to this problem is obviously going to be shareholders and the investors, right? Because these systems, these nefarious freaking business practices, all of this shit, these are known systems to shareholders, to investors that work. So they're, you know, it's like one of these things now when investors look at games, they want to see these things because they know that these are strategies and systems that work as far as returning their investments. And I do think that that is a big contributor. I think that because of the cost required, rather, to to put into create a AAA game or a game in any way these days, you need to get investors. And in a lot of ways, that crowd and that whole system has been a massive negative contributor to gaming largely over the last decade, as the cost of these AAA games has just skyrocketed, and it takes so much more capital for a business to endeavor to make a game. They become more reliant on the investors, which means more reliant on their opinions and their what they want.
A lot of the people in the government are either bought off or so stupid that they don't understand the nuances of these different programs and these different games and their monetization structures, right? So if they understood it better, they would be able to do it. But unfortunately, they don't. And so that's basically what I think is happening to them, right? The internet moves too fast for regulators? Well, not really. I mean, no, it doesn't. The thing is that if they were able to fix this, they could have fixed it in a lot of ways. Like, there's a lot of kind of like broad rules that they could have and then apply them to bad actors in the intermediary. I do want to say that the reason why these companies are bad actors.
I've pretty heavily talked about my thoughts towards game monetization and malicious practices in video games, right? That's a very recurring theme lately. I'm very happy that there are places in the world that are actively going after this shit. It's good. Because hopefully, children's games will be targeted as a part of this. And like, if anything, children's games will be the first thing protected as we go forward and we start really scrutinizing these sales practices being used, right? I think it's pretty safe to say that this at least means that hopefully our children's games will be protected here pretty soon. They're already pushing to label currency. I think that'll go a long way. Like, my daughter understands currency obfuscation despite being 7, because you see it so much in the games that you play anymore. So I sat down and explained it all to her, and I think that is at the end of the day, that's the main way to target attack this problem, is just educating your children and becoming educated yourself